welcome to the Wrestling Maniac Podcast. I'm your host, Marvelous Mike. This is your source for news and live results through the first week of May.
Hello, everyone. I want to welcome you one more time to the podcast. We have a lot of material to cover this week. SmackDown and Raw results, New Japan Pro Wrestling live pay-per-view results, and we're going to wrap up with news around the wrestling world this week, the first week of May. Let's get to it. Raw starts off, first off, with the women. The women are all in the ring, and the new champion, Alexa Bliss, has a little podium, and she is there taking her place as the leader of Raw, being the first woman to have won the Raw Women's Champion and the SmackDown Women's Champion, and she continued to cut a promo on all of the women that were there. She didn't really cut that much of a promo on Nia Jax, but all of this ended, of course, in a brawl between the women, all 8 women that are in the division, and ended up in a tag team match. We can see that there definitely is some heat between Alexa Bliss and Sasha Banks, which is great for a women's division. And also she said at the end, "Oh, I forgot Bayley," and she began to cut a promo on Bayley, which was good. The women's match was okay. The women's section took about 30 minutes of the program, which I believe was just a little bit too long. The match ended up where Bayley and Alexa was in the ring. Bliss continued on to be opportunistic, but still really no heel heat that she generated with heel tactics all over Bayley. And she ended up hitting Bayley with the DDT and getting the win. So really, I don't know exactly how this helps Bayley going forward. I don't know how this generates sympathy for Bayley going forward. We have some news about the pay-per-view on this particular subject going forward in a little bit later in the program. Next, we had T.J. Perkins and Austin Aries. They began they was going to have a match, and it started off with a promo between TJP and Neville in the back. TJP asked Neville why he had to use such horrible tactics of pulling the ref into the submission that he was going to that Neville was going to tap out to. It was good, but Neville was being great on his promo. He ended up turning this around, telling TJP that he needed to do something to Austin Aries to prove his worth. TJP and Austin Aries had a good match back and forth, but in the results, Austin Aries was able to edge out the win. But after the match, had been working on Austin Aries' knee, and he put Austin Aries in a knee bar, and so he did exactly what Neville said. Neville didn't say that he should win. He said that he should do something to prove his worth, and he further did some damage to Austin Aries' knee. It was a good session back and forth. Next, we had a couple different promos that I want to get to, maybe a little bit out of order of how they happened. We had first Seth Rollins come out and say that now that he had defeated Samoa Joe, now that he wanted the Beast, he wanted Brock Lesnar. Then we had Finn Balor come out and said the line started with him. And then we had Dean Ambrose come out and cut a relatively interesting little promo on Brock Lesnar, saying, let's face it, Brock only defends the title when Brock too. He's only here when he wants to be here. It was a little slap in the face of Brock Lesnar, which I felt was good, which it is ridiculous that the Universal title is not on the program. It necessarily did not have to be defended this past pay-per-view, but there should be a presence of Brock Lesnar there. It's a little bit ridiculous. So we're going to put a little bit more emphasis on the IC title, and that's what Ambrose wanted. And then The Miz come out and said that Ambrose wasn't even relative as a champion, that if he was relative as a champion, he wasn't even important enough to be on the pay-per-view, which was very good heel promo. And really, yeah, it's kind of true that Dean Ambrose is a little bit invisible as an IC title. He's a good talent. He provides some comedy relief, but it was a little bit redundant, I felt. One thing that through the entire show, Dean Ambrose was back trying to interview people. And one thing that I noticed, and it was brought out on some other podcasts, that I felt that this was a little bit the announcers. Remember how the announcers used to end their session "back to you, Gorilla," or "back to the person that was there at the ring that was doing the back to the announce team." That was good, and I think that some of the people that actually do the backstage announcing need to do that instead of blindly stare into the camera while the camera cuts back to the announce team. So Dean Ambrose had his little comedy moments throughout the show. Another promo that happened was Bray Wyatt that come out and interrupted Kurt Angle. Kurt Angle was there saying that Roman Reigns and Braun Strowman was injured during the pay-per-view because of the extent of their match and because of the intensity of their match and the things that happened during that match, and even Braun Strowman, running and knocking off a door of the ambulance, and that it began to relate to us. The announce team began to relate to us that Braun Strowman that he had a torn rotator cuff. This was a little bit ridiculous because anybody with a torn rotator cuff are going to be missing about 6 months to 8 months. As the show went on, and we were left in limbo of wondering whether this was a kayfabe injury or whether it was really real. Only Super Cena can come back from a torn rotator cuff early, and it does require surgery. So little later on in the news and notes, we'll be getting back to this subject. So the program went on. Apollo Crews was there, and he's teamed up. I guess he's teamed up with Titus O'Neil. They come out. Titus O'Neil is in a managerial role and faced Heath Slater in a match. Then we had some other matches that were there. We had a 6-man cruiserweight match. It was okay. Tony Nese, Noam Dar versus Tozawa, Swan, and Jack Gallagher. Jack Gallagher picked up the win. It was not very long segment. It was not very long segment. It didn't seem that it really had anything that was spectacular there. Then we had Enzo versus Luke Gallows. It was a decent match, I guess. It had, the purpose of this match was getting continuing the feud between the club and Enzo and Cass. Enzo and Cass, they need a little bit of a push here, and it seems like that both teams are in limbo at this point. Sheamus and Cesaro come out and cut a pretty good promo. on the Hardys. Now they're full heel, and hope that Sheamus and Cesaro really go to some full heel tactics in the way that they do their matches. Um, and Matt and Jeff Hardy come out. They're getting closer to the broken gimmick. Uh, it's going to be a progression, and we need to realize they're just not going to suddenly appear broken, but it is going to be a storyline that is going to be going forward in as we progress along with the storyline to SummerSlam. Bray Wyatt come out and he interrupted Kurt Angle. As I said before, he wanted really to introduce himself to Kurt Angle. He cut a promo. You know, Bray Wyatt seems like this great mystical person, but when it all comes down to it, he ends up losing, and I think it really hurts his character. He don't really seem effective. Even the House of Horrors match, many people said that it was wonderfully shot. I don't think that it was wonderfully shot at all. I thought the production of it was a load of crap, considering that the WWE produces movies. I think they could have done a really better job. We had probably the highlight of the show was this was the promo between The Miz, Seth Rollins, Finn Balor, and Dean Ambrose. The match that was between The Miz, Seth Rollins, and Finn Balor was good. I believe that it was, really what I noticed in this match here is there was a lot of sequence wrestling, which I believe that is good. I know that during Raw that they're cut short on time, but it just seems the action is just a little bit too fast for people to take it in. There isn't enough storytelling in that, but it was overall it was a pretty good match. It was a highlight of the night. I believe there's been better matches on Raw, but for currently in 2017 is one of the better matches. The match ended good with Samoa Joe coming out and telling Seth Rollins, interfering in the match, that he wasn't finished with him yet. And then we had Bray Wyatt come out and hit the Sister Abigail on Finn Balor, and Miz being the little chicken shit heel, which he plays that part well. He comes out and gets the win, and he is the number one contender for the Intercontinental Championship, and hopefully he will rescue the Intercontinental Championship from Dean Ambrose soon. Because I believe Dean Ambrose, is one of those characters that really doesn't need a championship to get over. I think his tactics is good enough. I think he's better chasing a championship in retrospect, and I believe that that's the way they should go forward from now on these two superstars. Next, we move to SmackDown live results. Show started off with Jinder Mahal taking pictures in the back with the WWE Championship. Shane come up and took the championship from him, saying that we earn championships around here, which was pretty good. Jinder Mahal, again, it's good. He's doing some good heel work, but then the bell rings. And next we have Shane O'Mac coming to the ring. He's introducing the new WWE United States Champion, Chris Jericho. Chris Jericho, again, won at Payback, which I believe it was a little bit of a swerve for the WWE to do this. But anyway, they had Jericho come out, and then AJ Styles come out, then Kevin Owens come out, and as I predicted, Kevin Owens, they challenge the Chris Jericho for the United States Championship, as I believe that's the way they would go, and how that they would ride Chris Jericho off into the sunset. Now and then we move on and find out that Naomi and Charlotte teamed up against Natalya and Carmella. That was a little bit back and forth. Charlotte being beat up, which is continuing her face turn, which I really don't agree with, but it is what it is, and that's what they're going to do. They want Charlotte to be the face of SmackDown, which I don't, which I agree with that, but with Charlotte, them being not a heel, which she's a much better heel. Becky Lynch did come out, tried to get involved, but ultimately the welcoming committee, as this group of Natalya, Carmella, and Tamia is going to be called, which is a horrible name, by the way, and James Ellsworth, which, why is James Ellsworth? He is so out of place. He is not. He has lost his luster, and I don't understand. He could be doing other things. I don't know what his weight is. He could be on 205 Live or doing something. I don't want to knock anybody and say anybody shouldn't be in the WWE, but I don't understand why James Ellsworth is in the WWE, why he's just hanging around Carmella, which I believe that he brings Carmella's stock down. It just is out of place. Becky Lynch and James Ellsworth's been having banter back and forth that they're going to face each other in a match and whatever, but the WWE is not going to do that. Maybe they'll get around to do that. At this point, James Ellsworth, he's not anything serious. He's never been anything serious. He's just a comedy act. And I believe that he's really, he just takes up segments for other people at this point, and he's not, providing anything of substance to get anybody over or get himself over at all. I really think that they missed the boat on Ellsworth. They could have had him go and through the roster and be that sort of Spike Dudley guy, be that underdog guy, and continued his little build that he had going. But the writers, I guess they didn't. They had other things that they were working on, and they wanted it to move on. I'm not saying that James Ellsworth isn't fit again to be in the WWE, but I just don't see a reason why he's on SmackDown Live taking time from other people. We had next we had Dolph Ziggler come out and get a victory over Sin Cara, which I don't understand that. It was sort of a dead segment. He was feathered his feud, what he's going to do to Shinsuke Nakamura at Backlash, which Shinsuke Nakamura is actually going to make his debut. He's had some dark matches with Ziggler. We had some other to the main event here. Chris Jericho and Kevin Owens. It was a good match. It was okay. Kevin Owens won the United States Championship back, which was, pretty much a given since Chris Jericho is going to be going on tour with Fozzy. There was Randy Orton was not on the show. He did perform in a dark match after 205 Live, which he was in a tag team, which don't really understand why he wasn't on the main show. So that was basically SmackDown Live. Um, Forgot about Todd Dellinger. Todd Dellinger did defeat Adrian English. It was a mediocre show. I believe that this week that the shows, both SmackDown and Raw, was a little bit lackluster. It was, it was there. Raw 3 hours long is still way too long. And SmackDown was just sort of just, I think it was a little bit thrown together this week. It wasn't that there wasn't anything on SmackDown that I can see that was that really made me want to watch. We had the Fashion Police do a little segment on the Usos, which was a little bit entertaining. But overall, Raw this week and SmackDown was a little bit lackluster. I think the intent of SmackDown simply was to get the belt off of Chris Jericho and put it back on Kevin Owens. Now we have Kevin Owens versus AJ Styles, which I think that's going to be a good matchup going forward. At Backlash, it should be the main event of the show. I don't feel that Randy Orton and Jinder Mahal should be the main event of the show. We don't want to end the show like that because you don't know what's going to happen because Jinder Mahal is limited in what he can do in the ring. Jinder Mahal continues to cut good promos, but then the bell rings and it's over. And that is my SmackDown and my Raw review for the week. I want to briefly go over the Impact Wrestling results from this week. It was overall a decent show that they had. Opening this show, the opening match was probably the best segment of the match with Eddie Edwards versus Matt Sydal with Eddie Edwards' wife Alicia Edwards at ringside. Why she's at ringside, I do not know. But anyway, there was a lot of action in this match, a lot of high flying. As we know, Matt Sydal, as we call in WWE, he was Evan Bourne. Recently, he's had some issues over in Japan with being caught with marijuana, trying to get out of the country. But it's good to see Matt Sydal back. Very entertaining match. Matt Sydal goes over with a shooting star press. Clearly the best match that was on the show. Next, we have a pretty good promo that come out with Magnus and Matt Morgan. And then we had Bruce Pritchard that come back and stop them yelling and telling them that instead of yelling at each other that they was going to have a match tonight for the GFW Global Force Wrestling Championship. So we have that match for tonight. We cut. The next match is for the GFW's Championship. Krista Von Erich, the GFW champion, versus Sienna. Sienna wins the match. It's an okay match, but kind of throws a wrench into the storyline that is between Sienna and Karen Jarrett. And now we go back to the back for another promo, and this one is with Eli Drake addressing Bruce Pritchard that he wants a shot. He's tired of being passed over, and he wants how can Alberto El Patron have a title shot? And Alberto was behind him and said, buddy, if you want a match, we'll have one. And so there's a match. The main event for the night was going to be El Patron versus Eli Drake with the GFW Championship opportunity on the line. We have a promo from ODB. She's okay. I don't know why she is in Impact Wrestling, but I guess she brings a little bit of leadership. Then we continue through the program. Again, we hear the brutal commentary of Josh Matthews. Pope is doing well. Josh Matthews is just horrible. Going through this storyline with Jeremy Borash. Then we had EC3 versus John Bowen. EC3, of course, goes over, and EC3 is one of the highlights of the company. Then we have the GFW Championship. We have Magnus versus Matt Morgan. Magnus works on Matt Morgan's leg. He does some little bit of dirty tactics. Hits the elbow from the top. Magnus gets the win. And still is your GFW champion. Not that matters. Then we have Rockstar Spud promo, which he was attacked by Swoggle with a ball peen hammer, and they're playing this really good. And that Rockstar Spud is now confined to a wheelchair. He's been broken. He can't move. His livelihood's been taken. You know, kayfabe land. This is a pretty good little segment. It's kind of humorous. Then we had Congo Khan versus William Weeks. Of course, Congo Khan goes over, building him again as a monster heel, which is pretty decent, I would say. Promo break. Sanjay Dutt has bruised his eye. It looks really bad. I don't. I don't know if this is kayfabe or if this is real. He was supposedly injured by Low Ki. So we have that storyline going on. Alberto El Patron versus Eli Drake. It was a decent match. You know, it's good to see El Patron working, aka Alberto Del Rio. Not getting into any of the stuff that goes on outside of the ring. But El Patron is good in the ring. He adds a little bit of star power to Impact Wrestling. And then we had El Patron end up with a win, and that was Impact. It was below average show. They picked up a little bit of viewership on their show the past week, which is good for the company. And that is the review of Impact Wrestling for this week. Still not up to the quality of what the WWE is. The whole at one point, Josh Matthews said that JR tweeted him. I'll get to JR's comments that JR had on his podcast towards Impact. I very seriously doubt if that JR tweeted Matthews. But the program there, I guess, it is their style. It's just something that is different on the Impact Wrestling. Keeping tuned, see how it goes. One of the highlights of the show, almost forgot, was Bobby Lashley's promo, and said he was the champion, that the GFW championship was a championship that those that were below him could attain, that they could not attain his championship, which is pretty good promo. Bobby Lashley continues to get better on the microphone, and Bruce Pritchard continues to enhance some of the talent with his input, which is good. Other than that, I would watch this show in passing. Also, news of notes. Since we're talking about Impact Wrestling, Impact is fixing to take a tour of India, coming up at the end of May, and we'll be seeing them take it to India, which is good. They have a TV deal that's there, and maybe it will get some talent to be able to come into the wrestling fold that maybe the WWE can pick up in NXT um, or New Japan Pro Wrestling. So that is Impact Wrestling for the week. Overall, the show was pretty much lackluster. It's something to watch, I guess, on Thursday nights if you have a chance, or just pick it up on YouTube when someone posts it. And that's a wrap. Next, we're going to be getting to a much better show, the New Japan Pro Wrestling Don Ku. I can't pronounce this results. Where the main event was Okada versus Bad Luck Fale for the IWGP Championship. This was a damn good show. I do like the New Japan style. Do the commentating team, Don Callis and Kevin Kelly they are the best in the business right now. They do stay in kayfabe the entire show, and they do a good job. First off, in the matches, we have Hirai, Kaito, and forgive me on these names, and Yoshitatsu defeat. These was two young wrestlers. There was 3 young wrestlers in this match. Katazui Kitamura looks amazing. Has amazing physique. He is very athletic in the ring, and expect some good things from him. As always, Yoshitatsu, he got the win. They don't have the Young Lion teams. They don't have them win in New Japan Pro Wrestling because they're just in a learning phase right now, which is a totally different type of philosophy there. Next, we had Will Ospreay and Yoshihashi defeat Chase Owens and Yuri Takahashi. This was a good match, good high points for Will Ospreay here in this match. He does look amazing. He does great work in the ring. Next, we have Tiger Mask W, who Tiger Mask W is Kota Ibushi, and Togi Makai defeat Jushin Thunder Liger and Manuba Naganishi and Yuri Nagata. Good spots. At one point in this match, Tiger Mask W, Kota Ibushi, does this backflip double Pele kick. It was amazing to look at, and it was just an amazing spot. It is just that that is pure athleticism in the ring. So we go on. And we had with Minoru Suzuki and the rest of Chaos Taichi, which everybody seems to hate Taichi. And then we had on the other side, we had Chaos, we had Jado, we had Yano, which Yano, he's a comedy act. He does a good job. He gets the crowd involved. But and it's kind of hilarious. Minoru Suzuki is the new netherweight champion, and the point of this match was to further the feud of him and Goto. I really think that Minoru Suzuki is probably one of the most kayfabe feared men in wrestling. Also, I would not want to get in the ring with Minoru Suzuki. He legitimately could hurt you, and he plays the heel role to the extreme, and it's wonderful. At one point at the end of the match, Minoru Suzuki is leaving and some of the young lions, they were around the ring, and he goes around and he just beats the living hell out of them. And it was, as I said before, it was Katazuri Kitamura. It was him that he just took him and drug him out towards the entrance, and he just flat out knocked him the hell out. And it was, he plays the heel to the fullest extent, and he protects his character, which I feel is very important. We'll get to a little bit more in some of the news and notes and my thoughts on that. Next, we have Cody Rhodes, or Cody, that defeated David Finlay. Again, it's just a load of crap that Cody Rhodes can't use the Rhodes name. In his promotions that he goes and does, he is going everywhere. One of the one spots of this match was on the outside, on the padding. He does Alabama Slam on David Finlay, and it looked like it would really hurt. Cody Rhodes was amazing in this match, as always, just so fluid and in the ring. He's on a completely different level. Of course, David Finlay is still a little bit young, and but he has good lineage too with Fit Finlay. But Cody is just at an entirely different level. He's at a main event level. If he stays with New Japan, if he stays with Ring of Honor, which he has signed with Ring of Honor, I expect Cody Rhodes to be the Ring of Honor champion sooner or later, and I expect him also to be a champion in New Japan Pro Wrestling. I mean, why wouldn't you do that? That's just money. Next, we have Hiroshi Takahashi and Naito defeat Kadushi and Juice Robinson. Naito, he just carries that IC title belt like a champ. Even though that he seemingly disregards it and he don't like it, Los and the group Los Ingobernables, or however you pronounce it, they are got to be some of the best. It's the best faction that I think that's in pro wrestling right now. You can't say enough good things about the how that they their athleticism that's in the ring. And Naito is actually one of my favorite wrestlers. Maybe I do mark out a little bit on New Japan Pro Wrestling, but I feel that New Japan is just just a better promotion at this point. Like I said, it's a little bit stiff at times, but you're going to get that. And then we go on to the IWGP Heavyweight Tag Team Championship match, triple threat between War Machine, Sato Ishii, and Hirao Tenzan. And then we had the Gorillas of Destiny, of course, Tama Tonga and Tana Lyle. It was a very good match. War Machine is the new Legion of Doom. They're from Ring of Honor. They look great. They look legit. These guys are big hosses, and they can move great in the ring. I don't know. Sometimes it does provide a little bit of intrigue, the triple threat tag team matches, but I think that this is building, and is building a storyline between, of course, Tama Tonga and the Gorillas of Destiny and War Machine. War Machine picks up the win. Afterwards, they're celebrating, and then Tama Tonga and Tana Lyle come and they attack War Machine, tell them that that you know that the the belts should be theirs. Um, Tama Tama Tonga, is definitely going to be a single star in the future. His brother Tonalao, he is a little bit young in the ring, but as far as being tag teams, I think that they are on their way to be doing some good things. Next, we have the never way open 6-man title match, which this was a pretty good match between Bushi, Evil, and Sonata, Los Ingobernables, and then Tanahashi, Ricochet, and Taguchi. Good spots was in this match. Both, Sonata, he's very athletic. Um, Bushi provides that cruiserweight element into the match, and then Evil just a hard hitting heel. Um, Bushi, Evil, and Sonata pick up the titles here after a code breaker from the top rope, the second code breaker from the top rope on Taguchi. It was definitely a good match. I think that this was a match really solidifying the end of Tanahashi's uh, uh, stint with Taguchi and his tag team that they have been part of in Taguchi Japan. I believe that now it's time for Tanahashi to focus more on Naito and the IC Championship, which is going to be his bout that's going to be coming up. And after this match, we had I rated it a 5-star match. We had Kenny Omega versus Tomohiro Ishii. I'll be honest with you, I was not really an Ishii fan coming into this match, but Ishii really won me over here. He did a lot of good selling in this match. It was back and forth. They set up the storyline that the winner of this match would go on and face Omega, most likely. It was a great storyline. It seemed like that Omega established himself again as the number one contender to Okada by picking up the win here, and but Ishii was also put over in this feud with Omega. He picked up the win going into the New Japan Cup, and then we had another match, and then Omega finally solidified himself as the contender. Omega ceases to amaze. He is amazing in the ring. Sometimes he does oversell a little bit, I believe, but that's just who Kenny is. But all in all, it was a great match, a 5-star match, entertaining match. And Kenny Omega picks up the win and moves on to bigger and better things. Then we had Okada versus Bad Luck Fale. This is a hard-hitting affair, of course, as Fale was really the bigger of the two men here, but how we can say that Okada, I believe he's 6'3", but he just great selling on both parts. It's a good match. Could have been a little bit better, I think, but it was what it was. Bad Luck Fale, it did a good job establishing Bad Luck Fale, continuing to build him as a star here in New Japan Pro Wrestling. And it was, I'm amazed by that not necessarily that people have to pick up wins to legitimize themselves as stars here in New Japan Pro Wrestling, but they are the best at doing this match. Okada ended up picking up the win again from I think 2 or 3 rainmakers that he did on Fale. And then after the match, the Bullet Club come out and they were looking after Fale, and they were taking him away, and Okada called out Omega, which was a little bit different. And I think that this adds a little bit more intrigue into the match, adds a little bit more into the psychology of what the kayfabe psychology of what Omega is trying to get into Okada's head here. And so we are going to have at Dominion, we will be having Okada Omega 2. The match of the century continues, and we expect good and great things from this. And it will be a match that probably will equal the last match that they had. I don't know if I look for Omega to go over. They need to put They need to put the championship on Omega. I believe going into an event that's in Los Angeles, a New Japan event that's in Los Angeles. Actually, I would probably have Okada win, and that to be the blow-off match. We don't know what exactly is going to be going on. Maybe Omega should retain. I think that it will really add a lot more interest into the product in North America if Omega is the champion and going into that event. So I look for Omega to get the championship at Dominion. I'm going to do an early pick here. It is, like I said, this match probably will be good. The only thing that I don't want to happen in this match is I don't want to see a German suplex off the top rope and somebody landing on their neck. That was a little bit too. That was last match happened, and that's just too unsafe. Overall, this pay-per-view was great. I give it at least. I give it an 8 out of 10. It was a good. There was good storytelling that was in this match, and that was in all the matches. Love New Japan. It's a different product, and everyone should check it out on their website. It doesn't cost that much. It's like $8 or $9 a month for their service to watch their pay-per-views and look to see what happens going forward. And now we come to a session that we're going to be having every week called This Week in Wrestling. News and notes from the world of wrestling. There was a lot of news this week which happened in wrestling. At the top of the news that happened in wrestling is that former WWE and WCW star X-Pac was arrested and charged with intent to distribute methamphetamines and marijuana at LAX as he was leaving for a show this last weekend. Sean Waltman said these charges was not that they did not have any basis, that he knew that he was on a list, and the drugs that they said that was meth was actually drugs for anti yeast infection. That he had a yeast infection, which men do get that. And also he had a candy bar that had marijuana in it. So first off, I want to say on this, he was released from his bail of $35,000, and he continued to do his podcast, and went on his podcast and explained the charges, how everybody was out to get him and all this stuff. Well, first off, I want to say this. You know that you're on a list, and that you're going to be watching for that list. So maybe we don't, and though, I mean, even though it's legal in California to have pot on you, and even though that you think that the pills are not going to be that, you know, it's just some supplement that you're taking to be able to fight your yeast infection. Why, you know, I mean, if you're not going to be in London at a show for very long, why even take that stuff with you, man? You got to think ahead of time. You know, hopefully all of this gets straightened out. X-Pac is a wonderful talent in the ring. He seems to be a great person. But I think that number one, he needs maybe somebody. If he can't handle this himself, maybe he needs somebody around him to tell him that maybe, you know, he needs not to do some things. He said, well, I didn't do anything wrong, but you know you're on a list. You know they're going to be checking you. You know they're going to be watching you. And this isn't just some local cop. This isn't some state cop. This is U.S. Customs, and you know, these people have a job to do. They were doing their job, and you know, you have to prepare yourself for what they're going to do. Maybe the lab results. Hopefully, all this gets straightened up. I'm not saying that he was doing this. I'm just saying that, you know, intent to distribute is some pretty serious accusations, and you should be a little bit mindful of when you're going overseas, what the rules are overseas, and you should be a little bit more mindful that if you are on a list, you know, have some heads up of what's going on there. Next in the news, we had Dave Meltzer. He did a shoot on, and Brian Alvarez, they did a shoot on Sheamus as an unsafe worker. Said that Jeff Hardy, he gave him, you know, Jeff Hardy the spot where he knocked Jeff Hardy's tooth out. That it was a really stiff kick, and that it was really uncalled for Sheamus to do something like this. Sheamus has a track record as a stiff worker, and perhaps at times that Sheamus is a little bit unsafe. As I said, in wrestling, you have to protect yourself, and you have to protect the guys that are around you, because those guys have families to feed, and you have to provide for your family, and and it is your job to get the person that you are in that ring with. It's your job to make them look like $1 million, and vice versa, them with you. In saying this about the in-ring action, we have an update from Shibata, who did a live headbutt on Okada in their last match. So on May 2nd, Shibata had yet another surgery, and everything apparently went well. From Shibata had a blog afterwards, so that's a good thing. That it is a miracle that he is alive. That he's had his skull removed, part of his skull removed in some of the surgeries that he has. He's on painkillers all the time, and he's enduring some of this pain himself. His painkillers aren't enough. He can barely see out of his right eye. Currently, the hearing in his right ear is not normal, and that the sounds sound broken. Uh, you know, there's a reason why pro wrestling is a work, and and we can look and we can say, well, I want to be real. You know what? It's a Pro wrestling is a work for a reason. It's a work for a reason simply because of the fact that if you went out there and you did these things normally, that it ends up with injury. Headbutts. I mean, I know Jack Gallagher uses a headbutt, but he does it the right way. I really don't see the point of headbutts. There was another, I can't recall his name. There was another guy who uses headbutts, flying headbutts all the time in New Japan. He was injured seriously. You know, I don't. There's other moves, and headbutts, I think, really aren't that necessary, because I mean, why risk the injury of the headbutt? And go ahead, don't do those things. Keep yourself safe, uh, and let's hopefully that nobody ends up again like like uh, like Shibata and Sirius. Hope that he gets well soon. Billy Corgan purchases the NWA. Former owner and Bruce Tharp come out and congratulated Billy Corgan on his recent acquisition of the NWA brand. This does not include the rights to the TV and the rights to the library or the tape library, but is just simply a purchase of the NWA brand. Different ones have come out. Jim Cornette's come out. Eric Bischoff has come out, and basically, you're buying a legacy here of a name of the NWA. The NWA really isn't nothing at all in this current state of wrestling. That there really is nobody now, when the license expires, that will be associated with NWA. So Corgan will whatever happens with the NWA brand is up to him. It's going to be a process for him and his team to build up the National Wrestling Alliance brand again, that it has went through a series ever since, I believe, the ECW back in the early 90s used the title, and Shane Douglas threw the NWA title in the trash. And then WCW said they didn't need the NWA because the NWA was doing some, the NWA said that you're not going to use our titles, and they thought they were bigger than what they were, and they really didn't. The NWA needed WCW more than what WCW needed them. But I hope that maybe that Billy Corgan has a plan here, that and him and his team, that they can build up the name of the NWA. It would be another place for talent to work, and only create, I believe, greater demand for pro wrestling. I look for it primarily not to be, when it starts out, it's just going to be a small regional promotion, but it's going to be a few years for this to get started, and I believe that it's going to be a work in progress, definitely, because all you're buying is you're buying the legacy, which it is probably the best legacy that is in professional wrestling, in the National Wrestling Alliance legacy, because legacy of champions in the past. Next, we're going to move on. Something that happened a little bit last week, I'm going to go ahead and put in here, was Ryback on his podcast commenting on Jinder Mahal. Jinder Mahal, Ryback said that, and of course he was really young back during when Mark McGuire was working out. Was doing his Mark McGuire was doing his home run thing, and he had big come out. I remember this when I was in high school, and there were some kids that was playing baseball that was using Andro, and we all found out that Andro was not a healthy supplement to use. His quote was on Jinder Mahal that Jinder Mahal's physique does not happen just using protein drinks, that he's using something else. We can say a lot about Ryback, but I think Ryback is somebody that knows something a little bit about working out, because he's in fitness. He is a fitness sort of guru out there with all of his supplements that are supposed to be really good for those. Then I'm going to go ahead and plug them here. Go ahead and plug Ryback's, that there are good supplements. I hope that they're approved by the FDA. If they're not, then I wouldn't use them. But Jinder Mahal, on social media, though, he does still contend that he has never used steroids or any performance-enhancing substances. Multiple times that he has been tested. I don't believe this. That it goes on that Jinder Mahal has gyno, which is a result of using performance-enhancing substances. I think it's an issue that it's not probably going to be resolved at all. But it is something for Ryback to come out and say that Jinder Mahal that Jinder Mahal's physique just does not happen, quote, with protein shakes. Then we go on, and we've been one of the biggest news that has been in wrestling per se, as it deals with the UK, as the UK is a really hot market for wrestling, was the World of Sport. And there, even Jim Ross had been involved a little bit with the World of Sport, and and then we find out that Impact Wrestling has been involved now with the World of Sport. They're taking over a little bit of the TV tapings and things of this nature, and sort of the booking of it. We find out now that the World of Sport wrestling TV tapings have been postponed until the future. It doesn't surprise me at all that on ITV, which I don't know what's going on. So there's contract negotiations going on that as a result that will and those that have bought tickets will receive refunds. I hate to say it, but it seems like more BS from Impact Wrestling. We thought these things was going to change, but looks like more bad news in that direction. Hope it goes forward, and because it's a big, huge deal to be on ITV, and hopefully they don't mess up that negotiations. PW Insider reports that Impact Wrestling is still pursuing the Hardys' broken gimmick by trying to retain the rights to it. I really can't believe that this is still going on in the world of professional wrestling, that Impact is still focusing on the Hardys and not focusing on their brand. This is one of the reasons why that I have sort of ill feelings towards Impact Wrestling on my review of their product. I try to be objective, but still they want to mess around with the Hardys. Clearly, the Hardys um, created this concept, but the new Anthem Sports will not let this go, which I believe this is ridiculous. Also, Reba Hardy recently tweeted um, today. And speaking of Impact Wrestling, they cut everyone's pay and lay off a bunch of people. But they decide, in other words, let's spend dollars and go after a woman that's 8 months pregnant and no longer works here. Speaking of Impact Wrestling, Reba Hardy wrote a lot of the work, a lot of the music that was the Hardys used in their intro, and Matt and Reba, and also I'm sure Jeff come up with a lot of the concepts for the broken gimmick. But Impact continues to try to pursue this. We thought that the Hardys showing more and more of the broken gimmick on WWE programming, that the WWE and Impact Wrestling had come to some sort of arrangements, but it seems that Impact Wrestling is being stubborn and bullheaded. Hopefully this works out, and Impact Wrestling will focus more on their wrestling product and getting their wrestling product over more than trying to be a hindrance to the Hardys. Let bygones be bygones. Let Matt and let Jeff go on with their careers and take the broken gimmick, which they did create, and which Impact I do not feel owns any rights to. Let the Hardys take that and go on with their careers. It's absolutely ridiculous and absurd that Impact Wrestling would continue to do these things to the Hardys. Also, news and notes of today, Charlotte Flair this past week, she had someone hack her phone, and on her phone she had nude photos, and so all over the internet there was nude photos of Charlotte Flair. I myself I have not looked at these, and I will not look at these. I feel like that it is a violation of someone's privacy to look at these photos. Maybe that's wrong of me, but I'm a little bit traditional, that I don't want to invade anybody's privacy. That is personal information. These people that have invaded Charlotte Flair's privacy, they need to be prosecuted to the full extent of the law, and people should be ashamed for going and partaking in violating Charlotte Flair's privacy. Let's celebrate Charlotte Flair as an athlete and celebrate her legacy that she has created on her, that she has built with her, on top of her father's legacy, and let's not do these sort of irreprehensible things and respect people for their privacy. Kane. Reason why we haven't seen Kane on TV is Kane is running for mayor in Knoxville, Tennessee. He's big into getting involved in politics, and he picked up a major endorsement this week by Rand Paul, one of the top Republicans, endorsed Kane, whose real name is Glenn Jacobs, for his bid for the mayor of Knoxville County, Tennessee. We hope and we wish Kane the best, and glad he picked up this endorsement. The Ring of Honor in their upcoming pay-per-view, their pay-per-view has been changed to a triple threat. Lethal will now face Cody Rhodes, and the winner of the championship match between Ring of Honor championship match between Christopher Daniels at their upcoming pay-per-view between Christopher Daniels and Matt Tabern. This would be interesting. I would. Pay-per-views called World Awards is going to be on May 12th. It ought to be an interesting pay-per-view. I look for maybe the championship to go to Cody Rhodes. They need to put I believe that they need to put a championship on him to make him keep him. He signed a contract with them, and get Cody in the limelight. He is money. He is money. Trish Stratus was honored this week by the Ontario Sports Hall of Fame. It's good for her. Trish Stratus is a great person, and she gives back to the community. And I know she's busy raising family, and it'd be great to see her back in the ring sometime in the future. The Rock celebrated his 45th birthday this week. Biggest movie star in the world right now is The Rock, and he's reached that pinnacle. Another one on his way is Batista. Batista's Guardian of the Galaxy was released this week. Guardian of the Galaxy Volume 2. Look for Batista's moving on and doing some great things. He seems to be happy and moving on from the WWE, and it's good that he has found his footing, and that he was in. Remember, Batista was in a James Bond movie, and it looks as though he's involved in this Drax character that he's playing in Guardians of the Galaxy, and I wish the best for him. He's got an upcoming film that he's going to be doing with Jodie Foster. This next month he's going to be starting filming, which is great, and wish him the best. Kenny Omega, in an interview, he spoke to Sports Illustrated this week. His speaks about his involvement with Ring of Honor, and how he maybe evolved a little bit more with Ring of Honor is coming up, but he's still committed to New Japan Pro Wrestling, of course. He talked about the prestige of the IWGP Championship. We've had Okada as the champion, and by the time Okada in 2017, we've had one champion in New Japan Pro Wrestling and the Universal and WWE titles. We've had 7 champions. Wow. And it is a different approach in the WWE. That the title is used more as a prop, but as he said, basically that the New Japan philosophy is to have one top guy, that the title rarely changes, and that that's just the way it is. I believe it gives more legitimacy for the title for the IWGP Championship over the WWE Championship. And here we have also he said about Seth Rollins' new finishing move, similar to the rain trigger that he uses. That he was glad that it was that someone would emulate him. That his comments. He wasn't his comments on Twitter. He was being sarcastic on his comments on Twitter. That he wasn't angry with somebody using his move. That it just shows that he is doing that he's doing something right. If other people, especially people in the WWE, are doing the right things. Jim Ross on his podcast, and I love this quote, and this review is and Jim Ross has a great quote, and this gives my thoughts about Impact Wrestling, about the announce team. Quote, he said, "I'm not a fan of it. meaning the heel commentary storyline. Look, Josh and JB are both buddies of mine. It's a cast and a role they play. It's a part. I find it creative. I find the creative of that and the structure of that is not my cup of tea. If it works for them, if it's what they want to do, more power to you. But it's not something that I'm interested in watching. It's it's not. I just think the whole thing has played out. It's ridiculous. And they need to focus on every moment, every match, getting their talent over, because the announcers aren't going to draw a damn dime and not going to draw a rating. It doesn't make sense, especially when your team is weak. It's like your football team saying, "Yeah, we have a draft. We need a quarterback. Uh, we got a couple wide receivers. And we need offensive line. Not to mention our defense is a little undersized. But boy, we got some good uniforms, and we can't play worth a damn, but we look good in our 8x10s." End quote. Yeah, this is pretty much my thoughts on Impact Wrestling right now. They got some good things going on with some of the commentators. I mean, some of the talent that's there, but the talent is just not getting over with the drama that's going on with the commentating team. And right now, the show is just trash. That's my thoughts on Impact Wrestling. We're moving on, recapping the first quarter. The WWE's first quarter earnings was come out. Let's look at some of the highlights here, as I like some of these things. That McMahon on the call said that they had a 10% increase in revenue due to live events. Said that they had $188.4 million up in revenue from the $171.1 million in 2016. Therefore, the WWE is doing pretty good. He said that the attendance has increased more by 100,000 with each of the 19 events, and he said that the social media numbers speak of the power of the brand, and that we just missed 2 million. They have that the WWE nearly has 2 million subs on the WWE network. The WWE is not doing bad at all, and that's good. And with the WWE wanting to go into India and they're opening an India store. That India store probably available online. That this is a good, and the WWE is going forward. I just wish they would get a little bit more better writing on their program. Then we move on to some more news here. Said that the plan for I think the most pressing issue here is the plan that was for the WWE Payback on the women's side for Bayley. That there was constant change whether Bayley was going to go over or not going to go over in the pay-per-view. That even up to the last minute they was changing their mind on how the finish would be, and which is not really that surprising. As Stone Cold Steve Austin said on his podcast, that with the way that Alexa Bliss won in San Jose, Bayley's hometown, that the crowd was really into the pay-per-view, but her victory just sucked the life out of that crowd, which I do not think that it was a good move. I believe Bayley should have went over in that pay-per-view because that it was her hometown. But it just seems that if it's your hometown, then it's definitely that you're going to lose. but it doesn't. That doesn't bode well for the women's championship. I hate that it changed hands. Maybe it should have changed on Raw uh, if they was wanting to do that. But Bayley should have had that moment. I do believe. Scott Dawson provided an injury update on Dash Wilder. That it's going to be 6 weeks before he's going to be back. That Dash Wilder's jaw is wired shut. I wished him the best and wish him a speedy recovery. Another deal about India is that Ricardo Rodriguez was a former valet and announcer of Alberto Del Rio, or Alberto El Patron, that he announced his retirement from in-ring competition. This is significant because he is one of the trainers at the Great Khali's Academy in India, and he's going to focus more on that. And this may help. And going into the future, that of the WWE's plan to go into India. More news is that May 2nd, that it was reported, I think, on ringside seats, that The Undertaker and Michelle McCool was spotted going into the David H. Koss Pavilion Hospital, which specializes and is a top orthopedic surgeon in the country, and second in rheumatology, and that the Undertaker, he has been delaying hip replacement surgery, but he went in there for expected to undergo a series of surgeries. Don't know if this is going to be hip replacement surgeries, but they were going into this. So the Undertaker is moving forward with his plans, and hopefully his plans for retirement, which we wish him all the best in the world. He gave his all to the WWE universe, and now it's time for him to, I believe, to enjoy some time in retirement. Not going to say that Undertaker is definitely not ever going to come back. He has said that if he gets hip replacement surgery, but we will see. Also, on the Neville and Aries feud, said that at the WWE, the Wrestling Observer newsletter reported that the Austin Payback was changed at the last minute. Neville was reported to have went over Aries, but they decided to do the screw finish, which I think this was a good plan that they did, and go ahead and continue this feud into Extreme Rules, which probably is going to set a triple threat match between Aries, Neville, and TJP. But I don't know if TJP is going to be in this one or not. That's a possibility, or just could continue the feud. I would say just go ahead and continue the feud till to SummerSlam, and have Austin Aries go over at SummerSlam to keep the title on Neville until SummerSlam. Okay, the main news, it seems, of the week was as we all know, the WWE is making their European tour. They have a hell of a schedule. So they really have a hell of a schedule. So they took time out when they was in Rome to visit the Coliseum. Well, one of the pictures that was taken and posted by Titus O'Neil was a picture showing Roman Reigns and Braun Strowman together in a picture. Actually, there was two pictures. I have a couple things I want to say about this. The good point about this is that maybe it shows that outside of kayfabe, that there have been some Roman Reigns fanatic fans that have wanted to get Braun Strowman fired because of his actions against Roman Reigns, and but this is the reason why that there is sort of kayfabe that this was totally broken this week. Kayfabe was totally broken this week on this feud. Uh, Others have said that this is Roman and Strowman's fault for not for not saying, "Hey, don't post those pictures. Just keep the pictures between ourselves." Um, uh, I look at it as a little bit of you know everyone's fault that was involved, particularly Titus O'Neil. He's the one that posted the pictures. I mean, uh, Roman and Strowman right now are that's the money match. That's the top level match in your company. You should be aware that you should be a person that wants to protect that. I don't know what kind of punishment Titus O'Neil is going to get. Probably not any, but he probably could have some punishment over this. It goes to show you that one of the things wrong with wrestling today is that wrestlers in the WWE do not particularly uh, try to stay in character all the time, which I know people's gonna have their lives. I know they know they have to lighten up, but you know, this is your character. This is who you are. This is your money. This is number also. This is other people's money too. This is the lower guys. You know, those two guys, what they're going to be doing in the ring as they main evented Payback. This feud going forward is going to probably go on all year. And it's a slap in the face to creative. It's a slap in the face to Vince McMahon for them to break kayfabe like this. Kayfabe is important as far as your character development. I mean, you're not going to see any pictures, and I doubt you're going to see any pictures in New Japan Pro Wrestling of Okada, Omega, and Minoru Suzuki all together having lunch together, being bosom buddies. It just is not what you do. You have to keep the illusion alive. They say, "Oh, you don't do that. The guys are just actors." Well, you know what? You have to. I mean, we can say, "Well, boy, I mean, they created heat." Well, that's what Strowman's job is to create that kind of heat to have fans outraged that much that they want him fired. And I think it's a lack of understanding on part of these guys on how that important it is to keep kayfabe on their characters alive. And part of the reason why that a lot of times that wrestling is looked down upon. Um, you know, and we can say that that is good or that is bad, but I think that overall that it was a bad move that to post them pictures. Titus O'Neil should have known better to post them pictures, and whoever else posted them pictures, they should have known better than to post them to Twitter, where the public is going to get a hold of them. Here we come out that the WWE comes out that the writers come out that Braun Strowman has a rotator cuff injury, 6 to 8 months. His rotator cuff injury are out, and miraculously he's doing a house show with Roman Reigns in Italy, and they're doing a tables match, which is all well and good, but they need to come up with something that the guy, I mean, he had bandages on, and Roman had bandages on, but you need to make it where it's believable, people. You need to do a little bit better job, people, of making to where, maybe not a rotator cuff injury. I mean, that's stretched it a little bit far. We'll have to see this Monday night what they come out and what they say. Uh, as far as this, I do look for there to be a. I do look for there to be a little bit of a of a per se pun backlash or repercussions to this. Titus O'Neil, he should have known better. He's a great guy. He's a great role model, but you can't post that stuff to Facebook. He should know. You should be aware. You should be aware what's going on. You should be aware what's going on. This is you guys' livelihood, and this is what pays the bills, and you should be aware what's going on, and you should protect your two top guys more than what they need to be topped. I'm not saying the guys can't go out and do stuff, but don't post the pictures to Twitter to where they can be seen by the public. Just a bad move. I don't imagine if this would have happened back during the heyday of the Bill Watts Mid South wrestling. If someone had released a picture and had it on the front page that you had the Midnight Express and you had the Rock and Roll Express, that they were all gathered together at the Denny's having breakfast in Tulsa after they had just had so much heat together. If you'd had front page news, if you'd had that have been on the front page news, that just wouldn't have happened. Those guys knew what it was to protect their characters, because they knew that it was good for business, and it's just good for business to protect your character. That character is what has been given to you. They've been put into that spot. Maybe this is a little bit of my issues that I have with Roman Reigns and with some of the different ones in the WWE, is that they don't appreciate and they don't protect their character. That character is their livelihood. And that's my soapbox from the news and from the notes. And that is folks, this week in wrestling. And the review, we've had quite an extensive program here, and I hope that each of you have enjoyed it. You can follow me on the Real Guru Wrestle on Twitter. You can also follow me in setting up a new website. It is www.ultimateworldwrestling.com. That's sort of the promotion in the future that I'm going to try to get going, but I'm setting up the website and all my stuff is going to be there, and you can follow me there. I have t-shirts there for sale. You can there's a link there if you want to help me get started on Patreon. I'm not going to have a infomercial. It's there. I appreciate each and every one of you listening to the program. Like I said, hopefully we can get this thing going forward and get it on iTunes. Enjoy the program. Be a part of it. Also, I want to plug a new magazine that I'm going to be writing for. You can find it at magtsc.simplesite.com. The magazine looks good. It's a legitimate wrestling magazine. It's based out of India, and so they ought to have some interesting stories. We get some news that's going on in India about wrestling, and we should be paying attention because India is going to be one of the top markets for wrestling in the future, as the WWE is seriously going to be expanding there. We have the link later on my website. Also, so I want to thank each and every one of you for tuning in for this week in wrestling, and this is the Wrestling Maniac Podcast. Hope you enjoy your day, you enjoy your night, anytime that you are listening to this, and stay tuned next week for another exciting podcast as we bring to you the latest happenings in the world of professional wrestling and our opinions, thoughts on the greatest sport in the world, pro wrestling.